Now to the security risk posed by China due to its rampant spying on the U.S. The Wall Street Journal reports that in recent years, Chinese nationals, sometimes posing as tourists, have gotten into U.S. military bases and other sensitive sites as many as 100 times. This comes as President Biden returns from Asia after 3 of his top cabinet members visited China to improve relations despite overwhelming evidence of China's vast espionage operation. Our next guest can talk in depth about this matter. We're thrilled to have him on once again. Kevin Cramer is a Republican senator from North Dakota. Senator Cramer, thank you for joining us once again here on CenterPoint.
Always my pleasure. Thank you, Joe. And thanks for highlighting this important issue.
No doubt about that. It is important. President Biden just returned from Asia. Of course, we know that he didn't mention a thing about Chinese spying. Maybe he didn't make it a priority. Do you think it was discussed, though, at the G20 conference?
Well, perhaps it was discussed, but, having the American people see you discussing it matters as well. One of the things that China has greatly exposed and taken advantage of is a vulnerability of ours, which is also a strength, and that is we're a very open system. So why wouldn't the president be very open in his discussions with Chinese leaders to talk about spying and espionage and why they continue to push us in these directions, and more importantly, why do we allow it to happen? I think that this president is compromised when it comes to China for whatever reason. He coddles the Chinese Communist Party. To your point earlier, several of his top cabinet and White House officials visit China on a regular basis as though we need to go to them for some sort of permission, instead of treating them like the adversary they are. And this story about Chinese tourists visiting our military bases is just one of many examples of how we just kind of let them take advantage of our open system and allow them to do things they'd never in a million years consider allowing Americans to do when they're visiting China.
100%. You're correct on that. Maybe we should have sent you to the G20 conference because you've said before when it comes to Chinese spying, there are things that can be done and should be done, but we have to have an administration that's willing to do them. So my question to you, are you concerned that the U.S. or the Biden administration just doesn't have the backbone to do anything about it?
Well, I'm certain that the Biden administration doesn't have the backbone to do anything about it because it's evidence in what they are doing, which is very little. And to the degree they're doing anything, it's just sort of made for TV diplomatic, ring kissing instead of actually getting down to the issue. One of the things they could do, for example, as it relates to these what are called B2 visas. Those are tourist visas. They undid a Trump administration policy which greatly restricted tourism visas from the CCP. In fact, under Mike Pompeo, he restricted a B1 visa, tourist visa, to one visa for one visit in a month. The Biden administration, then right away when they got here, eliminated that and opened it back up to unlimited visits to the United States over a 10-year period with a B1 visa. Very different approaches to how they approach our adversary, China. The same is true of B1s. Now, Senator Marco Rubio and I have legislation to ban CCP members altogether from having tourist visas. And I think that makes a lot more sense than going over and kissing their ring.
President Biden has made some strange comments over the last 4 or 5 years about China. Let me share some of these quotes. They're not bad folks. They're not competition when it comes to manufacturing, and he's not concerned about China. He said this before he became elected president. So my question to you, how different is this administration, the way they treat or the way he treats China, than the Trump administration?
Well, remember, one of the things that Donald Trump did with China was he embarrassed them by beating them so badly in a negotiation, a bilateral trade negotiation, and it embarrassed the Communist Party tremendously. First of all, good on Donald Trump for insisting on some guardrails to do trade with the largest consuming nation in the world, being the United States, and recognizing that we have leverage if they want to continue to sell stuff to us, and we want to continue to sell things to them. The other thing, just that rhetoric alone that you just read, I think tells you everything you need to know. He's right about this. They're not our competitors. They're our adversaries. I wouldn't mind if they're a competitor. You can have a good competitor that holds you accountable and makes you more honest and makes you a better business. But China is not a competitor. They are an adversary. I'm afraid he sees them as the next door neighbor.
Senator, one last question. Keep it to one word if you can, or under 15 seconds. The House Oversight Committee is investigating payments allegedly made to Hunter Biden by Chinese business interests that were said to be dispersed among the Biden family. Do you think President Biden could be compromised in some way from responding to this spying more aggressively?
I think he is compromised, quite honestly.
Okay. Senator Cramer from North Dakota, the great state of North Dakota. We appreciate you joining us here. Always great insight every time you come on, this time about China. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate your network very much.